COP26 is not getting very good reviews. Neither in terms of commitments by countries to inhibit the releasing of carbon emissions, nor in providing reparations, if you will, which I think is really, I mean, that's the most accurate way of describing it. The wealthier countries in this world have developed their wealth at the expense of poorer countries in this world. I mean, I know this sounds a little bit remedial, but I think people need to hear it. And aside from that, which I think is a sort of more of a colonial reparations and other types of reparations, the development of our economies has produced more CO2 emissions. These CO2 emissions have warmed the planet and have created all sorts of catastrophes that end up costing lives and money, and in some respects sometimes can be existential for some of these countries, and they need our support. We need to, they're dealing with our externalities is really what it comes down to in terms of our profit making. AOC was speaking last week in Glasgow. They had yet the final agreement was not there yet, so maybe people were a little bit more hopeful. But she had two comments which I thought were worth hearing in terms of like what the United States is doing. Which one? The first one? Yeah, those are in order, right? Yeah, let's do the first.
America is back at COP and on the international stage as a leader in climate action and drawdown. One thing that I think is so exciting about this time is that when we say that the United States is back, it's not just that we're back in the way that the United States was pursuing climate policy before. It is different. And I would argue that it's a fundamentally different approach.
Now, I think she got a lot of critique on that because it is
inaccurate.
Sounds like a car commercial.
Yeah, and it sounds a little bit optimistic. There is not a fundamental hostility towards the idea of dealing with climate change that is expressed by the United States. Yeah. As to whether we will have a material difference in our actions, that remains to be seen. But at least, it could be just as much like we're paying lip service again, whereas before we did not. Now it could change. It could change. I mean, there's the Build Back Better bill has a significant amount of money dedicated to climate change. Is it going to be to at least diminishing our emissions? Is it going to be sufficient? No. But you did at least also say that, we need to let me just qualify what I said earlier about the United States being, that great. We may be back, but we're not really where we should be.
No, we have not recovered our moral authority. I believe that we are making steps, but also kind of in reference to the earlier question, we have to actually deliver the action in order to get the respect and authority internationally to get the credit. We have to draw down emissions to get credit for being committed on climate change. It's really that simple.
I mean, I heard someone, I can't remember exactly who it was interviewed and said, this is like basically what COP26 did is they said, like, we're setting up the helpline. And the downside is you call the helpline and no one picks up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and she walked back those comments there. So maybe she even understood that she went too far in the first comment. But I just don't think it's helpful to aggrandize what is happening at COP26, because we have Jeff Bezos speaking there, and then you have activists like Greta and other representatives of like the youth climate movement who are banging on the doors trying to get in. There are youth climate activists who are sleeping in, I think, old homeless shelters in Glasgow, who were met with kind of some aggressive action there by police forces there. And domestically, AOC's been conscious of, I think, the kinds of action taken against protesters here, but not showing, I think, a ton of awareness with the first comment about how disconnected everybody in that room is from the protesters outside, which, like, you know, I think is important.
That's the big problem. I mean, that's the problem. The reason I don't get super upset with like the lack of heroic action from AOC is because I don't think like the movement energy is there to really empower the squad like we'd want them empowered. And for exactly that reason is why this is such a problem for me. You can't be one of the people that Greta Thunberg is talking about, that's basically gilding this piece of crap that we're not talking about any things we need to be talking about. And I think you can't be contradicting that message for nothing.
Yes,
exactly. What moral authority have we ever had to recover? Like the thing is, yes, we do need to do things. That's frankly all she should have said. Like, if we want moral authority, we need to do positive action for it. And it's but that's the problem, is you can't contradict those movements, in my opinion.
But I think it's fair to hold her to the standard to be the voice in the room that represents somebody like Greta. I mean, that's how she's
right. That's why
what Matt's saying is that
right.
that she needs to. She needs to make sure that she is following the parameters that have been set by the people who are protesting outside, in terms of so that their demands are not in any way sort of sanded down, or
because then what do you condition?
Their complaints are not sanded down.
You hold the line for them.
Yeah, what's AOC conditioning a section of her base to look at Greta being like, oh, these people are unrealistic? That's just not a good thing to be doing right now.
That's right.
And I don't actually think she believes that, but like, you know, it's just to say the United States is back just because we're in the room is feeding into the optics of doing nothing, which is what the Biden administration wants, honestly. Like, I mean, it's not helpful to claim that just being in the room is in any way close to sufficient, because it's not.